Whether you're a Catholic or a non-Catholic, it's been a historic day here in Washington. A visit by the Holy Father to the White House, a parade around the National Mall, a meeting with bishops at St. Matthew's Cathedral, and now we are here at the Papal Mass at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. I will step out of the way so you get a sense of being here, as if you are with 25,000 of your closest friends here in Northeast D.C. Currently, the canonization of Junipero Serra, the first Hispanic saint, has just concluded, and we just began the Liturgy of the Word. Right now, the psalm, the responsorial psalm, being sung by one of the hundreds of members of the papal choir that has ascended here in Washington. Let's listen for a brief moment. A historic moment indeed, a historic event here in D.C. We should mention that this Mass is not in English, it is in Spanish. The Holy Father is more comfortable speaking in Spanish, his native language, than in English, although parts of his visit will be spoken in Spanish. We'll be out here in D.C. throughout our newscast, bringing you updates on this papal visit, a very special occasion for Catholics and non-Catholics alike. Again, the first Hispanic saint just canonized in our nation's capital. The first Hispanic saint has just been canonized by one of the most popular figures around the world, Pope Francis. We are here at the Papal Mass, along with 25,000 Catholics, non-Catholics here in Northeast Washington, D.C. The Pope just concluded his homily. I will step out of the way so you get a glimpse of what we are seeing here at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. The Holy Father telling people in his homily that daily life can sometimes lead our hearts to grow numb. He said, "Rejoice always. Do not let your hearts grow numb." We are about to begin the Liturgy of the Eucharist here on the campus of the Catholic University of America, the East Portico. This is an interesting part of the Mass. The whole Mass is being said in Spanish, but let's listen in as this part of the Mass is sung. The liturgy, prayers are being read in Korean, in native sign language, as well as Vietnamese. Again, a very powerful moment here on the steps of the Basilica as Pope Francis celebrates his first papal Mass after a very busy day in D.C. We'll be back at 6 for more live coverage of this historic visit.
Quite an assignment for you, Joe.
Yeah, quite an assignment, especially for a Catholic, but there are a lot of non-Catholics that certainly love and appreciate this man from Argentina, the 78-year-old pontiff. I'll step out of the shot for a moment. The Liturgy of the Eucharist is still happening, still going on. 25,000 people, thanks to the help of about 1,100 volunteers, receiving communion, while today was a day full of celebration, pomp, and circumstance, and a lot of waving by Pope Francis. This is probably the most solemn part of the day. Catholics believe that the Eucharist is the most important part of the Mass. It doesn't matter who is celebrating it. They believe that the Eucharist and the bread and the wine become the body and blood of Christ. And right now, the Holy Father, Pope Francis, is now finishing this Mass, the canonization Mass of Junipero Serra, the first Hispanic saint. In his homily today, again, it was delivered in Spanish, no English being spoken here in Washington. He challenged those here and those across the country to keep moving forward. That's how he ended his homily. He said sometimes daily life can be so burdensome, so gruesome that you lose and you develop apathy. He said, "Rejoice always." That's a message, regardless if you're a Catholic, a Christian, or someone else, that you can appreciate. We, of course, will be back here to wrap up the Holy Father's Papal Mass tonight on your news at 7. A dramatic scene, a dramatic day in our nation's capital. Bill and Candace, send it down 95. Back to you guys in Richmond. Well, good evening, Candace. Certainly a visit that a lot of Catholics in Washington, a lot of Catholics in our area, and non-Catholics will never forget. Yesterday, Pope Francis canonized the first Hispanic saint. Today, he became the first pope to ever address Congress. His speech in a packed House chamber highlighted the lives of 4 Americans: Abraham Lincoln, Dorothy Day, Martin Luther King, and Thomas Merton. He challenged lawmakers to be more open to immigration, to address climate change, and with Supreme Court justices watching in the front row, to end the death penalty. At one point he said, quote, "The yardstick we use for others will be the yardstick which time will be used for us." After speaking to Congress, he then went on to the speaker's balcony of the Capitol, where he blessed several thousand students. Before we left D.C., we spoke with a few who had a ticket.
What I thought was really special was where he talked about the golden rule, just because it's so powerful. I mean, treat one as you'd want to be treated. It's something everyone needs to follow.
Just him talking about how important families are, like along with the children, but also just like how families are like what makes our culture and our society. And his emphasis on that was just really sweet. He's so cute.
A lot of people feeling that way in D.C., and this is a live look in New York City of that famous Fiat now. That will be the vehicle that will transport the Holy Father from JFK to St. Patrick's Cathedral, where he will have Holy Vespers evening prayer a little bit from now. Bill and Candace, a special trip in D.C. and now a special trip for those in New York.
And how is his political message resonating with American Catholics? Because there's some talk of a backlash,
yeah,
some saying he's too political.
Right. I think some Catholic Republicans feel one way about it. I think Catholic Democrats feel another way about it. But while he may address one issue that appeases Republicans, he then has another issue that appeases Democrats. It was certainly the most politics we saw today the Pope get involved in. It'll be interesting to see, though, if lawmakers listen to anything that he said.
Do unto others as you will have them do unto you.
A visit for the ages. Pope Francis's Washington, D.C. trip making history. Tuesday, he met with the president, was greeted by thousands at a parade near the White House, before making his way to Catholic University, where he canonized the first Hispanic saint, Junipero Serra. And on Wednesday, Francis became the first pope ever to address a joint session of Congress, telling lawmakers to act on climate change, to defend families, accept immigrants, and end the death penalty.
The yardstick we use for others will be the yardstick which time use for us.
For students getting a ticket to see him at the Capitol, it's something they tell us they'll hang on their wall forever.
We were so blessed that we were able to see not only the Pope yesterday, but him today as well.
Also getting attention during the Pope's visit was his form of transportation. First, using a small Fiat to get around, and then the Pope-mobile, made from parts of a Jeep Wrangler.
When he said God bless America, I almost started crying. It was so emotional. I don't know why. I was freaking out.
That same excitement now echoing through the streets of New York and then Philadelphia. Francis's last stop on his U.S. tour. The Pope returns to the Vatican on Sunday. In Washington, Joe St. George, CBS 6 News.